Thank you very much for joining us. We continue to look at government's first year in office. We look at the legal side of things. Now, I'm chatting with the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Senior Counsel, Anil Nandlall. AG, Minister, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this discussion series.
Appreciate. Before government came into office on August 2nd, 2020, there was a protracted election period that lasted pretty much for five months. And then you were sworn in as the Attorney General for another term after government's changed. You know, before we get into that, with a pandemic and everything that has happened, as an individual, this is you taking off the hat of government. How have you dealt with it over the last year plus?
It has been hectic, but it has been satisfying and fulfilling because democracy won in the end. The people's will was recognized in the end. The rule of law prevailed in the end, and the Constitution of Guyana triumphed in the end. So while that 5 months put Guyana on trial, put Guyana's legal system on trial, put Guyana's political system on trial, put Guyana electoral system on trial, in the end, the victory was sweet because of the restoration of democracy firmly on its tracks, the courts vindicating their role as the guardians of democracy, the Constitution being accorded its glorious supremacy, and the will of the people being respected in the end. I believe that that is what we should first celebrate, because without that, then there is no civilization. The opposite of that, or the absence of those prerequisites, is the prevalence of anarchy, and that is the antithesis of modern society. So firstly, I believe that we should celebrate that, and the fight and the struggle is not yet completed, because the elements who perpetuated and precipitated this attack on our nation state are still with us and are still persevering in certain directions. So we have the miscreants at GCOM still being there, and attempts to remove them are being resisted by the invocation of the most bizarre mechanisms, concepts, precepts, argumentations. The courts, again, is being used as a fodder to advance the sinister design of these collection of persons. The election results itself is still the subject of challenge by those who attempted to derail the process and by those who attempted to steal government and to trample upon the will of the people and upon our Constitution. They are now in the court system trying to persuade the court once again, as they attempted to do for 5 straight months, that their cause is just, that they somehow suffered a wrong. We are still battling with that in the courts. Fortunately, I am pleased to report that both of the petitions that they beat their chests and profess will put the PPP out of government within 6 months, both of them have been dismissed. We are now in the Court of Appeal arguing an appeal in relation to each one. I have no doubt that the rule of law will again prevail and those appeals will be dismissed. Then you still have the criminal justice system being activated to deal with those who violated the laws and attempted to corrupt the electoral process. That is a process that is ongoing. We still have challenges in the court system against two budgets that we managed to present within a few months of each other, a record by any standard. And these budgets are being challenged, although one of them have been expended and another financial year has begun, and that second budget, the 2021 budget, is being expended now. Still there is challenge to its legality in the courts. The first challenge, if I may briefly explain, says that the government presented the budget in violation of certain statutory procedures. The truth of the matter is that since the no confidence motion was passed, and the government of the day then refusing to resign and to call an elections within the 3 months period, the state of Guyana careened off its natural constitutional course, and the entire country was proceeding on a path of illegality and unconstitutionality, compliments of the government. So the elections came. It came long after the constitutionally prescribed time for it. The time for budget came, that passed because we were fighting to save the country. And there is a constitutional provision that says that the budget must come within 90 days of the beginning of the financial year, which is January the 1st. Or if there is an election within certain period of time after Parliament resumes. And Parliament is to resume within 90 days of the last election, the last time Parliament was dissolved. All those time frames went awry. They were all trampled upon and violated. So when we got into office in August of 2020, the entire state of Guyana had run off the constitutional track almost a year before. So after violating all those time frames and those legal prescriptions, how you expect us to present a budget that will be in compliance with the procedures? All the procedures have been violated. We had to put a stop on this track that Guyana was running on. Stop it. Then trying to bring regularity and constitutionality to the process. Present a budget long after the time for presenting a budget would have expired, and then try to get back the country on track amidst an opposition that continues to say that they have been robbed. Though 100 countries around the world, 100 governments around the world, and every single international organization of repute would have issued public statements condemning their conduct and calling upon them to accept the results of the elections and the recount. Despite all of that, they are still peddling this ridiculous mantra that they are the victims of some wrong and that the PPP government is installed. We still have that conversation going on.
Do you think that conversation will end anytime soon?
No, it will not, because you're not dealing with people whose head are on properly. And that's the nicest way that I can put it. So they are living in a world that they have created. And I don't know how long that bubble will last, but they are obviously in an environment of their own, alienated from reality and alienated from the rest of the world. So if you go on Facebook tonight, you will see at least 3 of them every hour, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10. And they will tell a story to their listeners that is completely and radically different from the reality of today's Guyana. So they will tell their supporters that the cash grant that we are currently distributing, $19,000 for every child in a public school, is a waste of money. That investing $3 billion in a COVID-affected economy and an economy devastated by floodwaters, people are out of job, parents are facing all manner of challenges, the world is enduring a recession, Guyana's productive sector is severely affected by floodwaters. In that scenario, the government sees it proper to give, in the form of assistance, 19,000 Guyana dollars per child in the public school system, and the goodly leaders of our country, on the opposite side of the political divide, say that that is a waste, that we are creating a dependency syndrome. They were in government for 5 years. I am sure Guyanese would have loved if they had created that kind of dependency syndrome. They scrapped the program. We had it at $10,000. They scrapped it completely. And we have restored it and increased it, and we have promised to increase it to 50,000. And they say that that is a waste. And that is in addition to us giving $20,000 COVID, $20,000 to public sector employees as a COVID measure. Then $25,000 per family right across the country. $4,000 last year as a uniform voucher with a small budget. We have reversed 200 draconian tax measures that they have imposed upon the backs of the Guyanese people. VAT on water, VAT on electricity, we have removed that. VAT on agriculture equipment, we have removed that. VAT on construction materials, we have removed that. We have reversed the charges that they imposed on the rice farmers at MMA. They moved it from $3,000 to $15,000 per acre. D&I charges and rents. We have restored it back to $3,000. We have put back into the pockets of Guyanese billions of dollars. And these bunch of naysayers who do nothing for the people of Guyana condemn what we are doing. You would have expected a sensible opposition would have said, $19,000? No, we demand that you give them $25,000. But these bunch of jokers saying that we are wasting money. Well, my friend, if investing money in the education of our children is a waste of money, then we are proud to say that we will continue to waste money in that manner.
AG, let me steer you away from this for a little bit. We haven't talked about the legal aspect yet of what you... When government took over, when government was sworn in on August 2nd, you came with an aggressive agenda, legal agenda. But inside of that, one of the first issues that cropped up was the Ponzi scheme issue, and people want to know what's happening with that. That's at the stage, and what measures are in place to prevent a recurrence of such.
We said from the inception that it was a criminal enterprise, that it is a criminal enterprise, that persons were just siphon off monies. There is very little that a government can do other than bring in the police force, do a thorough investigation, which the police force has done, and has put some, 300 or more charges against the individual. The laws of our country says that, say that he's entitled to bail. He has been granted bail. I believe his passports, him and his wife's passports have been surrendered, and that is where it is. There's really nothing else that you can do. There is no asset that the government can go behind. This guy doesn't own anything registered in his name. He's not a beneficial owner of any asset that we are aware of. So that is where that has unfolded, and that's where it is. Hopefully, I am reading in the newspapers that he has been refunding some people. I hope that everyone is refunded. That's our expectation. But you know, there's very little that government can do beyond what we have done. He has no operation in Guyana. He doesn't run any financial institution that is capable of regulation. So really the state can do very little. In terms of our agenda, we have had to examine a whole host of illegal and nefarious transactions in relation to land that the previous government had entered into. Thousands of acres of land were shared out. No, we can't find a process anywhere by how these lands moved from the state to those in whose hands they eventually reached. We don't know what process was involved or was engaged to ensure that other Guyanese had a fair opportunity. We don't know how the prices were arrived at. There are no valuations done. The lands were not even properly demarcated and surveyed. Most of the lands are landlocked. There was no survey done, cutting roads and access. The whole thing was a helter-skelter scheme of corruption and unaccountability. We are in the process of reversing all of that. We had some businessmen who have invested a lot of money and were duped into some of these transactions. We have gone to court in some cases. We are settling in some cases. You would have read in the newspapers 2 or 3 of the major cases we have settled. That process is still ongoing. You have a whole host of transactions that we are now discovering that are the subject of investigations, either by the police force or some forensic auditors. You have a massive fraud being uncovered in the GDF running into possibly $1 billion. You have another set of millions being missing at GWI. And you have a scale, some scales for the Demerara Harbor Bridge that were purchased but not received. $400,000 gone to purchase these scales and paid in full when the contract says that it should be a staggered way of payment. You have the wharf, the Kingston Wharf, Guyana's largest wharf, being handed out to BKT Wari for $200,000, a property that is valued some 8 million or more US. No, sorry, a small one. A small wharf facilities were sold for 18 million US. This property is about 5 times that size. This property is valued at a minimum 40 million US. Was sold for about 220,000 US or something like that. The man paid 10% of the purchase price. The purchase price was $1 million US or some ridiculous figure like that. And title passed to him. And he received a title free from encumbrance. So he paying 10% deposit, gets a clean title, and the 10% deposit is a fraction of what the purchase price is. We are in court dealing with that. You have the lands and surveys guy, doled out lands that were not even owned by lands and surveys. Some of them were 𝐍𝐄 lands, some was the National Sports Commission land. He just had, and President Granger never gave him the authority which he is required under the law for him to sell. He never had an authority to sell. Rather than the opposition protecting their president, they're jumping behind the guy and supporting this guy for just giving out state property just like that, which he had no authority to do under their own government. And these are some of the inexplicable things that I see every day that you wonder what kind of logic is these people guided by.
Have you boosted the numbers inside of your ministry to deal with these cases you're talking about in terms of human resources to address this?
First of all, and that's the other thing, they keep harping in the public domain that we have dismissed tens of thousands of people. Let them produce these people that we have allegedly dismissed. All of my ministers, all our ministers can say the same thing. I have not dismissed anyone. I have hired new staff. I have a Solicitor General that I went there to meet. I went there and met. He's still there. I have a Deputy Solicitor General. And I can go down the line. Parliamentary Council, Deputy Parliamentary Council. One of the PNC leaders is working in my ministry. Never had an unprofessional talk with her. And that is the style of our government. Take what happened when we left government. Basil Williams chased everyone out, half of the ministry. Just knock them off. The PS, the Solicitor General, the Deputy Solicitor General, right down the line. Dismissed all of them, sent them home. All his people are there that he hired. I never sent one of them home. I have hired others who are qualified, more lawyers coming out of law school, because there is a lot of work to be done. So, I just give you those examples. Yes, we have dismissed cronies. Yes, we have dismissed persons who got political appointments and they were not qualified for. They are entitled to go. You could imagine the ridiculous statement that Harman made, that he wanted to continue serving at the office of the president. People forget that, but you you have to reflect back on these things to understand the mentality of the people that you're dealing with. This guy is the opposition leader. And when he received his letter terminating his contract, he was highly offended and says that he wants to continue to serve in the office of the president, and he's opposition leader. And I'm not making this thing up. This is a matter of public record. We have a serious problem in this country, right? And in this 1 year in government, we have seen various displays and various manifestations of the problem that I'm speaking about.
The question then I would ask, let me take you back, and government is inclusive, and it's the same scenario. The opposition leader wanting to work with government. Was there a possibility, any possibility at some point in time, that he could have had a job somewhere within that ministry or somewhere else serving?
That would have been a matter for the president. And I would not want to second guess. But what I do know, that we would have found ourselves in serious political problem from our own constituency, were we to even entertain Mr. Harman's suggestion. Of course, we are committed to a different style of government. We have said it in our manifesto. We can't come like that. It got to come through negotiation and through a process recognized by our Constitution. Harman just can't want to inveigle himself in the office of the president, the center of executive power, and want to stay there in the position that he had when he was in government. I mean, this is insanity, my brother. This is not normal. It's not normal behavior.
Let me shift.
So, you want me to talk about my legislative agenda?
Let's talk about legislative agenda. What are we looking at?
So, in recognition of Guyana's economic ascendancy, in recognition of the fact that we are going to have a multiplicity of investment opportunities that will virtually explode once we are out of this COVID pandemic, we have to hurriedly prepare our legal architecture for this huge influx. It requires tremendous modernization. So you have to deal with it in sectors. Public health, for example, since we are on a pandemic, our public health ordinance or law is a 1936 legislation that's just under 100 years old. And that's what governs us today. Obviously, that is completely outmoded and anachronistic for today's society. In fact, when you read the act or you read the ordinance, it's very difficult to relate to present-day Guyana. So we are in the process of doing a public health act a new Public Health Act. We are doing a new Mental Health Act. I keep saying that. We do not appreciate the state of our mental health issues in Guyana, and it's prevalent. You look at the parliament and so on, you will see the issues coming up over and over again. So, so we have mental health issues that we have a mental health bill that we are working on.
Right.
We have a tissue transplant bill that we are working on. So and we have about 20 in the public health sector alone. You move across to housing. We have a condominium bill that is currently in draft. We have new zoning laws that we are reviewing. We're going to deal with country town planning and proper management of land resources. We have to regulate our waterfronts and get new legislation to deal with those kinds of activities. Moving across to the natural resources sector, in particular oil and gas. Already we have put out there, and it's now at the tender board being reviewed. The bids have been received, a tender, some $2 million US tender for assistance in redrafting or drafting new laws for our oil and gas sector, the environment, and other related sectors. We are in the process of revising the laws of Guyana. The last time we revised the laws was in 2012. Revision of the laws, quickly for your viewers' understanding, is simply to update the laws, put into it the amendments that would have been made since the last time the revision exercise was done, which was 2012. So we are, in 2021, we are doing that, a new one. Of course, you know that we have promised to review our electoral laws. Right. That is a work in progress. A first installment of that has already been given to my political principals for the review. Once that is completed, we are going to make that public and consult. In terms of draft bills, we have the agriculture sector, we have a food safety bill, food security bill. Mm. Then in the local government sector, we have a solid waste management bill. We have a border patrol bill that is being worked on. We have several amendments to the Births and Deaths Registration Act. We have in the Parliament already a hire purchase bill. Mm. We have an amendment to the Narcotics Act, as you know. That is attracting a lot of attention from the Rastafarian community. We have, we passed a whole set of amendments already. We have a bail bill that we are working on. Final draft was done, but I'm not pleased with it. The legal profession is not pleased with it, so we have hired another consultant to have a look at it. We have established the Law Reform Commission. You would have read in the newspapers. The President has approved the names of persons to sit on that commission. The swearing-in ceremony will take place, and that soon, and that once that commission is properly constituted and begins to function, it will take a large aspect of our law reform and push that agenda. So we have a lot of bills. I mean, I could talk for the next hour alone on where we are.
You know, we're not going for the next hour alone.
Constitutional reform, there's another manifesto promise. I gave one press newspapers the other day an interview in which I outlined where we are. We have had 2 or 3 meetings so far. We have not been able to accomplish a lot. You have COVID, etc., and that has impacted negatively on our performance. But trust me, once we get rid of this COVID and we achieve herd immunity and our country kicks off, and we are able to return to a greater degree of normalcy, these agendas will accelerate. So a lot of things are going on. I didn't even mention that. I mentioned it, but the reversal of all the tax measures, some 200 of them, had to have been done by legislation. You know, you do taxation by legislation or by orders. All of that had to have been drafted, presented to the National Assembly for our people to benefit from all these reliefs measures. So we have had to deal with flood waters right across the length and breadth of Guyana. You would have seen ministers going out. Our country has been severely affected. Our productive sectors severely affected. And then you have the global pandemic that we are dealing with. Fortunately, we are performing well in terms of availability of vaccines. We have some difficulty in persuading people, I don't know why, to take the vaccines. They are listening to a lot of foolish propaganda on scientific rhetoric. I advise that they really take the vaccine. It's the only sure way of fighting the virus. I reiterate that not a single person who has taken the vaccine is dead, and a lot of people are dead. So it means that the vaccines are working. We are leading the way in the Caribbean, actually, in terms of, though we are suffering these setbacks, we are leading in terms of availability of vaccines and the rate at which our people are taking the vaccines. But so we have had a packed year, very packed year. We just launched just completed the launch of the online scholarship program, where the entire cabinet went out right across the length and breadth of our country to encourage our people to get educated, get certified, because when the educational opportunities present themselves, we have to have our people equipped to take advantage of them. You know, I normally tell people that you can be the best plumber in Buxton or the best carpenter in Annandale. But if you don't have a certificate, you may not get a job at the Hilton as the maintenance man or the plumbing man. Because, you know, those institutions and the world requires certification. So we need to encourage our people to take advantage of these opportunities, because we want our people to be the primary beneficiaries of the investment opportunities and the job creation opportunities that will invariably present themselves. So, you know, in 1 year, I think we have accomplished a great deal, and I want to recognize the President. He has led from the front. We have had invaluable guidance from the Vice President. The Cabinet is a mixture of both young and old, experienced and inexperienced, but we have melted together, we have molded together well, and I believe that I believe that we are delivering on the promises that we have made to our people in our manifesto. If you look at having regard to all the constraints that we are operating under, 5 months late in government, COVID wreaking havoc, flood wreaking havoc, and you come in under those very trying circumstances, you check our scorecard, I believe that you will give us a mark of excellence, because I think we have performed reasonably well. And I'm not blowing our own trumpet. I don't think I have to do that. Our track record speaks for itself. And don't even begin to compare, because there's no basis for comparison. I said that the other day at another forum. There is simply no basis to compare what we have done and what existed before. In this cash grant, I was telling the people, wherever I go, I said, as a result of the flood, as a result of coming in office late, as a result of the COVID pandemic, our economy is severely affected. Our productive sector is severely affected. There's a global recession. Where are we getting this money to pay all these grants and to give out vouchers, give out cash grant? And where are we getting this money, give out flood relief? All we have done is to stop the thief in. We have halted this quandemania, and we have replaced it with prudent management of the economy. And we deliver to the people the savings. Rather than fly to Ireland for an injection or go to Brooklyn and hold a little fete, we take that money and we invest it in our people. That is the difference. That is the difference in the style of government. And that's where the money is coming from.
AG, I'm going to ask you to leave it there for now. Thanks very much for chatting with us. I know we can always talk about so much in our time, but time does not permit at this stage. Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Anil Nandlall, best wishes going forward to you and government.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks very much for chatting, for staying with us. I am Lieven Bramley. It's been a pleasure. Remember to be safe. Have a good one.